All right. I'll speak to this. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to.
This meeting is being recorded.
Simha, we can't hear you now.
I also just wanted to note that I'm getting some emails from folks who are trying to get into the public session, who says that they're in a practice session. And then one from Ben saying he's still on the public side and hasn't been promoted to panelist.
Hello. Hello, can everybody hear? Could somebody talk that is not in the room?
Hello?
There
Yes, we
you
can
are.
hear.
Yes,
Now we're here.
can
Now
hear.
we're good. Sorry about that.
We're going to take just one more moment because we need to promote one of our board members from the up to the into the panelist discussion. And
Did you hear what Sarah said?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that
Yeah,
fixable?
yeah, we're fixing it. No one
and I
else.
see a comment from Reverend Curlin Hackett, who said that he was able to join the public section by using the link on the web page. But like I said, I've got a number of folks who are emailing me who seem to be stuck in a practice session. So I don't know if there's.
We do
a
have
way to
44
make-
attendees currently. I wonder if it's just a little bit delayed because we were in a practice session until like 2:05. So I imagine the emails are just coming in now, but we have 44 people here, so should be square.
Okay.
In progress.
okay.
Sorry about that, everybody, getting in the new space.
All right. Let's try one more time.
Let's do it.
Austin, thank you for that help. I'd like to welcome everyone, and I'd like to call this regular meeting of the KCRHA Implementation Board to order. We start by grounding our work in our theory of change, which is that if we create a homeless response system that centers people with lived experience, then we will be able to focus on responding to needs and eliminating inequities in order to end homelessness for all. So this is a hybrid meeting, as all of our locations will be going forward. So there's a physical location, as well as virtual access. Today, we're in the King County Chinook building, and I'd like to thank our partners at King County Executive and County Council for letting us use this space. And to those of you who have joined us in person today, thank you for joining us. Austin, would you kindly take the roll?
Yes. Member Anderson,
Present.
member Caminos,
Here.
member Carvalho,
I'm here. I also see that Christopher is in the other room.
No, I'm actually.
Oh,
he's present here.
oh, JK. Never mind.
Member Shelmanak,
Here.
member Merritts,
Here.
member Spotted Elk,
Present.
member McHenry Jr., Member Pat now. Member Brandon. Member Reddy,
Present.
member Rankin,
Here.
member Ross,
Here.
and I see Jaja is present. Jaja, are you filling in for member Brandon? Oh, I did not catch that. Jaja, are you? You're still, I think you might be physically muted. Your mic. We still cannot hear you, Jaja, unfortunately.
Shashi, you want to give us a thumbs up?
Thumbs up or thumbs down? Are you filling in for? Cool. Yes. Okay. Awesome. Sweet. With that, we have quorum at 1, 2, 10, 11. 11.
Okay.
Yep.
So now I'd like to give the floor actually to Ruben Twin of the Mother Nation to provide us with our land acknowledgement. We're grateful for to have Ruben join us, and
Don't see Ruben in. Yes, Ruben is not in attendance today, so I put Ruben is not here.
Well, then I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that King County is located on the unceded traditional land of the Coast Salish peoples, and that we honor this land and its people past and present, and we're committed to directing funding and resources to organizations led by and in support of Native and Indigenous people. So at every meeting, we've reserved time for public comment. If you'd like to provide comment, please raise your hand in Zoom or sign up here in the Chinook building, and Austin will call on you in order after the consent agenda. We're going to have 15 minutes allocated for public comment with 1 minute allotted a person. So on our consent agenda is the approval of the minutes from our May 2023 Implementation Board regular and special meeting. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'd move to approve the minutes
Do we have a
of both
second?
meetings.
Thank you, John.
Second.
Anderson second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. Thank you. I would also like to move. So next, I'd like to, just before our public comment, actually, to move via unanimous consent that the agenda item of officer elections, to move it directly after public comments. Some of our members will have to leave early, and it's our only action item on the agenda today. Is there any objection to moving it to after public comment?
I don't mind moving it to after public comment, but I did have some questions just procedurally about whether it's appropriate to have the officer election today, given some procedural issues with the LEC designees. So, just to sort of put that there, I don't know as a point of order whether it's better to bring that up now or after, but I don't mind moving it personally.
Well, in that case, why don't we, the motion passes to have the elections directly after public comment, and we can bring that up, I think, John, at that time.
Okay, that sounds fine.
Appreciate it. All right, we would like to move now to have our CO update from our CO, Helen. Helen, are you available?
Okay. Apologies, just getting organized here. So good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see you all. We have a lot to get through today, so I will be very brief. I first want to thank this board and our community again for your support of the 5-year plan. With the plan in place, we now have a shared guide toward reducing unsheltered homelessness, and we appreciate the support. You'll hear a full update on contracts in a minute, but it's worth noting that all but one contract are executed now, and we will be working to improve the contracting process this summer and into the fall. Also, as we work to improve our internal processes, we're engaged with partners at the City of Seattle and King County to bring fresh eyes to our operational workflows and project management. As interim CEO, my goal is to shore up internal operations and open up the lines of communications with our providers so that we can be a better partner to them. I want to help provide a more solid foundation for the next CEO of the RHA to ensure that the agency is able to implement the 5-year plan. We all know that this work is urgent as well as complex, and it will take some time. By working together, we can push each other to do better and move closer to becoming a community where every person can have a roof over their head. And with that, I'll refer it back to you, Chair, unless there are questions for me.
Questions for our CEO?
I'd just like to say thank you to Helen for stepping up and stepping in at this transition time. So I personally want to extend my gratitude.
Thank you, sir.
This is Anderson. I second that as well. Stepping in at a very critical time in the life of the organization. So thank you, Helen.
Thanks, Pastor Anderson.
And yeah, here's Nate just recognizing for those who may recall, Helen was part of our inaugural board of the implementation board when we started in 2022. And so for her role there, her role at the city, her role as deputy CEO, and her role as acting, just all around, thanks, Helen, for all your continued work.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Helen. I think that sentiment is echoed broadly. I will keep my comments short as in terms of chair updates. This is primarily for our board. Number one, if you haven't had a chance yet, please do respond to or check in with Austin around which committees you may be interested in. We do want to make sure we are moving a lot of our work and discussion towards committees, including our budget, system planning committee, and board development and communications committees. I think that'll allow us to have more robust dialogues, kind of as we saw with the system planning committee around the 5-year plan. So please do be in touch with Austin around that. Second, if you have not yet had a chance to do so, Helen has set up a number of kind of CEO and board office hours, and she's intentionally put them at a wide variety of times. Please check in with Helen. I think that sort of one-on-one time or just a few board members with Helen is really helpful in building that relationship and allowing space for advice giving and discussion. We now have 15 minutes for public comment. If you wish to comment and have not already raised your hand on Zoom or signed up here, please do so now. I see Jaja's hand, sorry, before we move to that. Jaja?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you can hear me, Sima. Can you hear me
sure
now?
can.
We can.
Okay, thank you so much.
We can.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Each person will have 1 minute to comment, and we ask that the comments be related to today's agenda. We'll start with the people on Zoom and then move to the people in the room, if any. Public comment is now open. Austin, would you please call on people for public comment?
Yes. So first up, we have Anitra Freeman. Anitra, I have just allowed you to talk. If you can unmute and if you want to test it, we hear you. And then your minute starts whenever you talk.
Thank you. The number of people needing shelter keeps growing. The number of shelter, housing and support, medical, mental health and treatment keeps shrinking. The system is close to cracking. The number of homeless deaths is breaking records. Instead of acting with urgency, political leaders blame the victims of a broken system, criminalizing and sweeping them. Enough is enough. The homeless state of emergency declared 8 years ago has become a catastrophe. Mobilize now as if you really mean it, with a massive push for shelter, medical, mental health, and substance abuse treatment at the true level of need. Stop blaming the victims, fix the system. We stood for 39 people today. Jeffrey Johnson, Joanne McDougall, Lee Harris, Stephen Rich, Morgan Price, Logan Pua, Sharina Holland, Key Nguyen,
Anitra,
Kenneth
you're-
Smith.
Anitra, your 1 minute has expired. Thank you. Next up, we have Bill Kierlin Hackett. Bill, you are allowed to talk. If you want to unmute, test real quick, then your minute will start once you talk.
Thank you, committee members. I want to give you a quick update on the vehicle residency work group out of RHA. There's a safe lot starting for RVs through Lehigh. 30 RVs and 10 tiny homes will be in Interbay starting later this summer. There's a Bellevue safe lot that will start under the city of Bellevue. We have a subcommittee directed at Seattle. We've met with 4 council members off the Public Asset and Homelessness Committee. We've met with the mayor's office, but we keep running into the choice of criminalization over compassion and collaboration. The streets are still being controlled by law and order and not providing us innovative solutions that we've presented to all of them. So right now we're waiting for a better response from the council and also for promised meetings of follow-up with the mayor's office. I'm not sure what you can do, but the problem is we're spending a lot of outreach money to remediate sweeps. I don't think that was in the plan. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Maria Arns. Maria, you were just allowed to speak. If you want to test your mic, unmute and then begin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring up that it's a concern to me that I would like to be sure that we're going to preserve the LEC co-management with the Ombuds office to allow for proper checks and balances and ensure the integrity of the office. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up we have is Elizabeth Maupin. Elizabeth?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm not sure if I am speaking to the agenda because I could not find the agenda. Oops. Hello?
Hello. Yes, we can hear you. The agenda is on our website, but
Yes,
your 1 minute starts as soon as you talk.
Yes, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to find it. I don't know if that's just my stupidity, but I did want to second what Maria said about the Ombuds office. It's important that it be under more than one organization so that it isn't controlled by the people that it's reporting on. Do you understand? And the other thing I'd like to bring to your attention is that there's recent research that shows that if the filing fee for evictions is raised, it reduces the number of evictions. Evictions fuel our homelessness, so reducing the number of filings for eviction will reduce the increase in homelessness. Something to consider. I don't know what your impact is on that, but I thought I would bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Tamara Bauman. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. If you just want to unmute and then test, and then your minute will begin once you speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name is Tamara Bauman. I am a housing advocate and a Continuum of Care board member, and I am reaching out to encourage the implementation board to increase pressure on the governing committee to do its job and actually stop criminalizing homelessness, stop sweeping people, and actually pay attention to the needs of lived experience. I am totally sick of seeing folks blame and pathologize folks for something that's beyond their control. Homelessness is a structural issue. It is a symptom of a sick society, and it is on all of us to change that. We need more information. We need to do more to educate the public on the structural issues. We need the public officials to live up to the task that they have not been living up to. I demand accountability from everybody that holds a position of power, including the implementation board, governing committee, lawyers. I mean,
So
government.
Mary, your minute is up. Thank you. And last one I have signed up on Zoom is Shanae C. Shanae, you are up. If you want to unmute, test, and then begin, that works.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I just want to comment my concern that it always has been that KCRHA continues to operate without these systems, checks, and balances in place, and asking for this ombuds to be split again when we say that we're centering the theory of change. If we're Xing out people with lived experience, then that's not really doing what our mission and what our values are and our principles. And so I just question that when we're putting agencies and other things above actual humanization of people and housing them. And that checks and balance needs to be done. I mean, that's the whole point. That's what it was created to do, is to bring the voice of the powerless, voice of the hopeless to the table. And right now there is just a big undermining coming down in regards to X out people with that experience, and their expertise is valued at these tables, and to be put on hold or paused or cut out of the picture just because it doesn't fit the bill. It's not what the bill is fit to do. It's the same thing we're fighting against.
Your minute is up. Thank you. With that, is there anybody in the room that would like to speak? No. Chair, back to you.
Can I ask a question? Did we change public comment from 2 minutes to 1 minute recently?
We did, to allow more people to comment in the time.
Okay.
That was at our 1 or 2 sessions ago.
2 sessions, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Public comment is now closed. I do want to say thank everybody who commented, and in particular, Anitra, I'm sorry. Thank you for acknowledging the loss of life that's in this community over this last year. Sorry, I will pause there. So we are now due to hold our officer elections, and as I would like to run for re-election, we need to have a chair pro tem run the elections for us. I'd like to motion that member John Chelmanek be that chair pro tem for the elections. Is there a second for that?
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
I only oppose on a matter of procedure. I sort of wanted to have a conversation. I tried to flag that earlier.
We're gonna do, my intent, Sarah, is to do that immediately upon going into it.
Okay.
So, okay.
Okay, then I have
Thank
no
you. I
objection.
appreciate it.
All right. Then I will turn over the chairmanship to member Chelmanek as chair pro tem. Thank you.
So I just wanted to sort of briefly set up where I understand we are. We have a resolution today that would establish, that's later in the meeting, that would establish the timeframes for the election of the officers of the KCRHA. That election, according to what has been proposed in the resolution, would be at the February meeting of the KCRHA. So assuming that passes, and again, that can always change, but assuming that passes, the elections that we would hold today would be for the officers who would serve until that February election. There'd be another election, and then those officers, if they changed at all, would serve for the full year. There has been some discussion, and I'm not sure how much was actually in the meeting and how much was just between myself and Austin, but and I think Simha may have been in on it, but the idea was to move ahead today. Actually, we did have a discussion at the last meeting. I take that back. And it was stated that even if we didn't have the King County member, the second King County member, that we would move ahead with the election today. So we would proceed with electing the co-chair, who is required to have lived experience. We would then go to the next co-chair, of which that person could have lived experience or not have lived experience. And then I believe we were electing, help me out here, I think it was the treasurer,
and then secretary.
And, oh, okay, treasurer and secretary of the board. In the hope of maybe cutting this discussion kind of to the chase, it is my understanding that Zsa Floyd wishes to be nominated, or some wish to nominate her. I've had the discussion with Austin about this. If we move forward with this and her name is put before me, it would be a ruling of the temporary chair that her name would not be properly before us. And that is because she is currently an alternate and has not yet been appointed to the governing committee or to the implementation board as a regular member. And I believe that this is what Sarah is asking about. Is that correct, Sarah?
Yes, you know,
okay.
so my understanding of the procedure is that right now, you know, neither one of our LEC members has been properly confirmed. Okisha was voted as a primary member by the governing committee, but as an alternate member by the COC. Zsa was voted as a primary member by the COC, but by the GC as an alternate. So my understanding of the process is that they should have both gone through the COC first and then the GC, but the COC had the correct information about what the LEC's wishes were in terms of who would be serving as a primary and who would be serving as an alternate. So that was the confusion that I asked about in the last meeting, because I was confused that that alternate was Zsa was being discussed as an alternate since she had been voted on as a primary or recommended as a primary by the COC to the GC.
So what so let me do this. We're sort of launching into this discussion right now. What I would say is if we got to that point and I made a ruling of that, that ruling can be challenged and a majority vote of the members would challenge that ruling, and then we would go ahead and have her name on the nomination. But I want to ask Austin, what is the current situation regarding LEC and who represents the LEC on the implementation board?
Yes, so the three members who have been nominated by the COC, and then confirmed by the GC are Okisha Brandon, Juanita Spotted Elk, and then you, Sarah Rankin. And so those are the three that we have that both successfully gone through the COC process and the GC process of getting voted on, to my understanding, and what I've found on a record base of things, but I'm unaware that this would have been different.
Yeah, there's a procedural defect is what I'm saying, which is where the confusion came from that I brought up in the last meeting. Okisha was recommended by the COC as an alternate. The GC voted her as primary, and then Zsa was recommended by the COC as primary and voted on by the GC as an alternate. So it just got flip-flopped. And this is important because as the chair pro tem has noted, there is a desire for one of our members who has lived experience to run for that position, for the co-chair position, which would be Zsa. And if this confusion, this sort of procedural defect is what is keeping her from being able to be a viable candidate, then I would I would absolutely not feel comfortable with proceedings, since this has been something that I've asked about since the last meeting, and because of our commitment to the theory of change and to centering people with lived experience.
Thank you. Is there, Austin, is there a written record of who got voted on by the COC?
Not that I have, and this is the first time I heard of the swap, that there was a swap between the alternate and the thing. I've not either received an email about this, heard anything about this, or seen any record of one's an alternate. This is just what I have had tracked and been fine.
So I had asked a while ago for Marvin to be promoted to a panelist because he's on the COC board, and serves in a leadership role there. But my request sort of went unresponded to. But he can speak to that since he's on the COC board.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask this before we get into, anything that makes anybody upset or whatever. I'm going to just ask, what would the intention of the board be to vote on Zsa Zsa if she is nominated, with the understanding that she has to be confirmed? We do have to go through that confirmation process so that we get that confirmed by the governing committee, because the governing committee, I believe there is a record of who that was. So I'm just going to ask what the feeling of the rest of the board is. I'm uncomfortable being the bad guy in this, to be bluntly honest, but we have got to start doing things by a book. And we've got to start, there has to be records created and there has to be a process to follow. And if people can't follow the process, we need a different process. Every single meeting we seem to go through somebody who's supposed to be on the board, but isn't on the board, who didn't get on the board. I'm sorry, I'm going to leave it at that. What is there? I'm going to go this way. Is there an objection to accepting Zsa Zsa's name as a appointee, as a nominee? Is there an objection to that? But based on the fact that she does have to get the governing committee approval. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to that?
Chair Pro Tem, are you asking what the feelings are if she assuming she's confirmed by the GC? Is
Yes,
that okay? Thank you.
Assuming that she is confirmed by the GC. And when's the next GC meeting?
The 20th of July.
Okay, well, I just
and just to sort of back you up on that, Chair Pro Tem, I agree with you that procedure absolutely matters, which is why I'm raising this, because the procedure was flip-flopped and it doesn't make sense how it was done.
So I don't want to get into a debate over this, but clearly that there is a breakdown in procedure because we've been doing this a couple of times now. So that's what I want to make certain we have happen. So I'm going to ask this: is there an objection of anyone to proceeding with allowing Zsa Zsa's name to be nominated? Keep in mind, it is people with lived experience, not members of the lived experience coalition, who can serve in this position. So there could be another nominee that we would vote on. I don't know that for a fact, but that could be the case. So is there an objection to proceeding with allowing her name to be placed in and then making sure that the GC has the opportunity to vote on that at the next governing committee meeting in July?
I think Zsa Zsa has her hand up.
Zsa Zsa, okay, I can't see. Zsa Zsa, if you'd like to go ahead.
Thanks, Pro Tem Tomanek. I'd like to say, is there a reason why we have not promoted Marvin to the panelist as an alternate? From what my
Yes,
understanding is, alternates have the right to have a voice. They cannot vote, but they can participate in discussion. And
Yeah.
as he is the COC co-chair, he can bring clarity to the situation.
Yeah, in particular, the reason why Marvin has not been promoted was in the IB bylaws that were passed last session. Section 2.4 under alternates, paragraph 2, it says alternate for members of the board representing those of lived experience shall be appointed and confirmed in the manner similar to the primary member. Basically, Marvin was not put up to the GC in the last meeting, which was June 1st. Therefore, he was not confirmed as an official full sitting alternate. Therefore, he did not get the invite link as it. So that hopefully clears up that question.
Thank you, Austin. I did not know that it was the alternates also had to be confirmed. Thank you.
And then Anderson and Paula have the hand up.
Okay, Pastor Anderson and then Paula Carvalho.
Thank you, Pro Tem. Chair, I just had a point of information. Was this, I've heard several words, flip-flopped and swapped. Was this an intentional or an unintentional endeavor? And what happens if we move forward in the process and Jaja is voted on, but then she gets denied again on the July meeting? What is the rectification to this process? That's my question.
So I believe that if she were not appointed, and I'm not legal counsel, but I would believe under this, if for some reason the governing committee did not appoint her, that the co-chair position would be back open again for appointment.
And I could shed some light on your question, Pastor Anderson. Again, if Marvin were able to speak as the co-chair of the COC, he would also share his the same information. But it's my understanding that it was not intentional. It was a procedural defect where they received the wrong information. So it was just a scrivener's error sort of situation, as I understand it. So it was not intentional. It's just a procedural defect that needs to be cured.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Yeah, no, we were gonna go with I'm sorry, Paula.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I guess I'm just wondering if there's anyone from KCRHA leadership. I mean, this is the first that I've heard that Okisha was not voted on through like all of the boards member. And I don't have a problem with Zaza running. I think my issue is that like if Jaja runs, we're effectively saying that Okisha is no longer on our board or will serve as an alternate, but I don't think any of us had that understanding that Okisha was not our voted upon board member. And with Okisha not being here, I don't feel right moving forward with it. And I'm just wondering if there's anyone from the KCRHA leadership that like have seen the notes. I mean, I've watched both board members, both the GC and the COC board, and I didn't realize that there was a discrepancy either.
I think this is something that can be just verified, right? Like we can't do it right in this moment, but go back, review those recorded meetings, check the minutes. We will have an answer on that.
But we're not, we're gonna lose Damian shortly. He has graduations to go to. I'm, you know,
I'm not opposed to you.
I share your frustration. It's really improvisational.
Can I motion that we delay or table the seat A until there's clarity and it's cleared up, and move on to B?
You're talking about co-chair position A is what you would want to move.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, Austin.
I would say that is, what I was offering up was, is there, and it sounds to me as if there may be an objection to moving forward. I think that's a reasonable thing that Paula has just raised, is Okisha's not at this meeting. And that would put her into being an alternate. So I believe that it's my belief that we could proceed without a vote on position A, and do position B, do the secretary and the treasurer. And then come back to position A at the July meeting. I'm sorry, at a meeting when this has all been worked out. It's going to require the governing committee to take action. As I understand it, also, I would say a member who has lived experience, well, okay, that would preclude a member who has lived experience from going for position A, even though they're not a member of the lived experience coalition. That wouldn't preclude them. We would just have to do that at a later date.
And I also want to say that I will run for position A, for chair A.
Okay, hearing that, then I would say that I think my personal opinion is it would be best to, and I forget who said that, could they make a motion to not do position A and just do B and the other? Was that Jaja? So I think that may be the better way to go. And I would request a motion to that effect, a motion in a second. We'd then take a vote on it.
So moved, Mrs. Anderson.
And I'll second that. Thank you.
Okay. The motion is to delay the vote on position A until we have worked out who is the alternate and who is the IB board member. Is that correct? Jaja, does that state it properly? Okay, thank you. So that's the motion before us. I know that we can have discussion on that motion since it's a new motion. I think we have discussed it pretty well, but is there anybody who wants to opine on that particular motion?
Yeah.
I am.
Sorry, John. I just want to point out that this is an ongoing issue with the nomination and selection of the lived experience folks, and I would very much like to ask the RHA staff to just take a bit more ownership of this as the nominations move from the COC board to the GC and to back to the implementation board. I mentioned this before when we were bringing Okisha on board here, but I do think that this is really contrary to how we should be operating here. We're supposed to be centering the voices of people with lived experience because they so often get excluded, and we've just got ourselves in this. I don't think anybody's trying to do this intentionally here, but we've got to stop this. So I just, awesome. This isn't your fault either. This has started long before you arrived, but I would love to look to you to try and solve this. And you've been very helpful on just all the procedure stuff already. Please just take this under your wing too.
Okay. Is there any further comment on?
Just last one there.
Go ahead.
You know, well, we hear just a bit of a prod to staff there, which, you know, justified, if all valid here. Just to Paula's point, for several months, it's been my knowledge that Okisha has been the regular implementation board member of this board, and Jaja be the alternate, and these individuals have personally introduced themselves as such. And so outside of staff and conversations that have taken place, and outside of the procedure of the challenges of how things have gone in COC and GC2, I'm confused of how, like, what has happened or transpired, because that's how these individuals have introduced themselves to me and to any of these meetings, outside of how staff has been going through this protocol. So let's move on so we don't lose that Damien for the rest of these votes that we want to acknowledge today, but just pointing out that this is not just a staff thing.
Okay. Any other comment on the motion itself? I'm not seeing anybody, so I will call first of all for just a voice vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion that would delay the vote on co-chair A, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. We'll now move on to the motion for the co-chair position B. This person could be a person with lived experience or not. The way this goes, it's probably the worst Roberts procedure of all. All this requires is a individual to be nominated. We take the vote then in the order at which people are nominated. So if person A is nominated first, we vote yes or no on person A. If person B is nominated second, we vote yes or no on position B. You each get to have that vote. What I do want to let people know is I've been through this in the selection of a mayor a number of times. I've been on both sides of that issue from time to time, and it's kind of painful. But you are not really voting no on an individual. If you vote no on position A, it's not really voting against that person. It is so you have the opportunity to vote on position B. So I just want to point that out. It's an uncomfortable place to be to vote no on a colleague, but it's really just simply the matter of you want to have the chance to vote on the other person. And that is the same one if we have a position C. So at that, I will open the floor for nominations. Is there anybody who would like to nominate an individual? What?
Juanita was first to raise.
Juanita raised her hand first.
Yes, I like to nominate Ben Merritt for the B position.
Okay, Ben has been nominated for position B. Is there any other nomination? And you may nominate yourself.
Sarah's hand is up.
Sarah, thank you.
Sorry, I just, sorry to be the proceduralist today, but will there be an opportunity for whoever is nominated to address the board about what their intent is and
Typically, no. That is not.
understand who we're voting on and
Well,
what
it's
they-
typically not. So if I could, Sarah, typically that is not, it's not done because in this type of situation, we're voting on people with whom we serve on a board. So that's it. If we want to have that, if the members would like to hear that, then we certainly can do that. I'm leaving this up to people and being a little bit loose with it.
for public transparency and accountability for the public to hear what the interest and sort of intent of the folks are who agree to accept the nominations. Thank you.
I would like to nominate myself.
Okay, we have a nomination of Simha Reddy to be. I'm going to give everybody, as I say, typically you don't do this. I haven't said anything to either, and is there any further nomination? Any further nomination? Any further nomination?
This is Damien. I will nominate Simha Reddy.
Simha has been nominated.
I didn't hear, sorry.
Yeah, not a problem. Any further nomination? Having asked for the nominations 3 times, I'll declare the nominations closed. I'm going to give Ben and Simha 1 minute each, just to speak to the issue that Sarah raised. That's not the typical process, but I'm going to let them do that. And Austin, you get to hold them to the minute.
I will.
This is the last time you're going to control one of the co-chairs. So Ben, you will go first and then we'll hear from Simha.
Okay, sure. So firstly, thank you, Juanita, for the nomination. I would like to serve as co-chair. I want to do that to strengthen the board, strengthen the authority, and move us all together towards our new goal of bringing everybody who's unsheltered inside as quickly as possible. We have a CEO transition now, which is both the opportunity for a new start, but also puts us under quite a lot of time pressure. We only have 18 months until the ILA that formed the authority expires. So we need to move forward, and we need to move forward quickly. To that end, as co-chair, I would have 3 very simple priorities. First, to work together to rebuild our relationships with our most important partners, such as our service providers and the Lived Experience Coalition. Second, may I have a few more seconds?
Yes, because we did interrupt you. You got 5 seconds.
Okay, well, second, to create an annual work plan for the authority. This is a legal requirement that we have never done. If we work together to do this.
Okay.
You're done, Ben. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Ben.
You're out of
Do
time.
you guys mind if I had like 30 seconds more? Can we do 90 seconds?
It's the last.
I was gonna say you can take 30 more seconds.
Okay, take 30 more seconds, and then we'll give a minute and a half to Simha.
Thank you. So first, rebuild the relationship. Second, get an annual work plan done, a legal requirement that we've never been able to do. And lastly, to work with all the stakeholders to advance the search of the CEO. I've heard a lot of pessimism about how difficult it will be to find a new leader for this organization. I don't share that view. I think that if we form the right base, point ourselves in the right direction, we will be able to attract a great leader who will be able to take the reins from Helen and lead us towards our objectives. So thank you.
That's it. Perfect. Right on time.
All right, Simha, a minute and a half.
I'll actually try to keep to that 30 seconds. I think this board will be ably served by either Ben or myself in this position. I've really been honored to be in this co-chair position for this last year and a half. And I think the RJ has accomplished a great deal in this time. We have a long ways to go. And my goals over the next 6 months or so for this board and for the agency would be to really focus. I agree with Ben in terms of our relationships, and as sort of our only direct service provider in this community, in our board, those are relationships I value very highly in our community. And for us to really sort of double down in terms of our work via committee to have discussions around a wide variety of policy issues and ensure that we are providing the good oversight that KCRHA needs and deserves. So stop there.
Wow, great, thank you. Okay, so this comes to the point where we will have the vote. The vote will first of all be on Ben, then the vote will be on Simha if Ben does not achieve a majority. Also, just to clear things up, Jaja is the alternate for the LEC, but is serving in the role as the LEC member, so she is able to vote on this in case there was any question. I just wanted to make sure of that. So I'm going to ask for a roll call.
Here, John, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, who is that? Damien?
This is Damien. I was just curious, are board members able to provide any rationale as to our vote before the vote is made?
I typically, again, the answer is no. I honestly think we should move on. I think the 2 members have given us their vote. I'll just leave, again, it's not the most comfortable of positions for people to be in, and I recognize that, but I think we should just move ahead with the vote. I'm not seeing any objections to that. So I will ask for a roll call vote on Ben.
Yes.
Then Ben Merritt's.
And I'd like to also add with 11 members present, the win number will be 6, which would be the majority. So first up on Ben, Member Anderson, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Caminos, yes or no?
No.
Member Carvalho, yes or no?
No.
Member Shelmanak, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Merritt's, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Spotted Elk, yes or no?
Yes.
McHenry Jr. is not present. Member Patnow, yes or no?
No.
Alternate Floyd or member Floyd, yes or no?
Yes.
That was a yes, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I wanted to make sure. Member Reddy, yes or no?
Nay.
Member Rankin, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Ross, yes or no?
Nay.
There was 6
May I just-
yeses.
May I just make one, I think Gordon McHenry indicated to me that he was on, so is he not on?
He is on.
Oh, is he on?
Yes, so you said he wasn't present and he is on.
Oh, he was in the attendees. I just saw him.
Thank you for that call out.
Thank you for that, Helen. I'm sorry. Sorry, Gordon, I did not see
Thank
that.
you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, and for the record, I've been on since about 2:20. So
I am so sorry, Gordon. I did not hear or see that. I
It's okay.
apologize.
I'm in the mobile car. Sorry, I am present. I do want to vote on the current nomination. I would vote in no.
No, so that is 12. We have 12 members. That results in 6 yeas, 6 nays.
I would declare the nomination fails on not achieving a majority vote. Okay, so we're going to move forward now to the nomination of Simha Reddy, and I would call for a roll call vote.
Yeah. All right, this is for the nomination of Simha Reddy for co-chair position B. Member Anderson, yes or no?
No.
Member Caminos, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Carvalho, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Shelmanak, yes or no?
I'm going to go no.
Member Merritt, yes or no?
No.
Member Spotted Elk, yes or no?
No.
Member McHenry Jr., yes or no?
Yes.
Member Patnow, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Floyd, yes or no?
No.
Member Reddy, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Rankin, yes or no?
No.
Member Rank, no, thank you. And Member Ross, yes or no?
Yes.
The results are 6 yeses to 6 noes.
Okay, so that motion also fails. Typically, what we would do again is re-vote to see if anybody wishes to change. To change their vote. So I'm going to ask that we do that again. And I'm going to suggest this, that, well, no, I will. I'm going to suggest this, that if we end up in a similar situation, that we move on to the other officer positions and take a vote.
I do wonder, I mean, I know that right now we're at a stalemate, but I do wonder, so to Damien's point, if other board members can speak on their nomination. I don't think it should take up like a ton of time, but I think if people have something that they want to say, since we are kind of deadlocked right now.
I'm willing to, I literally am willing to try anything to get this to happen, as long as the nominee is not me. So I'll allow anyone who wishes to speak to speak to for the reasons for their votes. I would be I guess Damien, you asked first. We'll go there, Paula, and I'll ask for others who wish
Sure,
to speak.
just really quickly, and I mentioned this a couple of meetings ago. I did have an issue when Member Moritz used the word curious to talk about things that our former CEO, when he brought forward the issue from the King County Council. And I think any implication of unethical or duplicitous behavior that is being levied should be followed up with some facts. And I just don't think that that's good for the leadership of this board to have someone who's going to behave in that manner.
Paula, I know I wrote down who people voted for, but if you'd like to speak to Simha. And your
Yeah,
decision.
I think Simha has carried, you know, in lots of ways has carried this board very far. I think they've been a close both ally and accountability partner to the KCRHA. I think they've pushed when they needed to. I think that they've held you know, lots of opportunities for us to have learning opportunities, for us to have face-to-face with KCRHA staff, for us to grow as a group. And I have to echo what Damien said. I think the ways in which Ben called out CEO Jones at the last meeting was really unprofessional. I think it is not a curious thing that a county council member would call a CEO. And I think that doesn't fly. I think it's not respectful. It's not how we want to do this work. And we can move with urgency, and we can still be good people.
I'd like to ask, since we've heard two people who voted for Simha, are there individuals who voted for Ben Moritz who would like to speak? And I have, that would be, I think, anyway, is there any?
Anderson.
What's that, Pastor?
Yeah.
Thank you. Let me say, with all due respect to both candidates, sometimes we place a lot in words that are said, but when we think about the overall perspective of the individual, we know that the person has a good heart for the organization, as well as respect for our fellow human beings. For me, Ben fits that category. And I think that with all of the transition that we've experienced right now, I think we do need a fresh perspective on this venture as well. So that's why I support Ben Moritz. Thank you.
Is there an individual who also voted for Ben who would like to speak? That will at least even us up at this point.
Member Rankin.
Member Rankin.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I think everybody here wants the KCHRA to succeed. I don't doubt Ben in that regard. I certainly don't doubt Simha in that regard. And I agree with Simha that both Ben and Simha would be absolutely credible and capable chairs. My goal in serving in this role is to make sure that people with lived experience are recognized and elevated and supported as experts on the work that we're doing. And I was very concerned with the way, and have been, which is the reason why I was pounding so hard on the procedure. I've been very concerned at how difficult the whole system has been for our members with lived experience to be elevated and supported and seen. I've had conversations with both Simha and Ben, and believe that Ben will have a adequate sort of mindfulness about the need to really elevate and support our members with lived experience. And I found talking about that with him persuasive. And so that is why I voted for Ben.
Okay, so that's two individuals who have spoken on behalf of our two nominees. Is there an individual who also would like to continue to speak on the nominees? And I would offer also if the opportunity for somebody who voted the other way. So is there anyone who wishes to speak to it?
It was Juanita first.
Juanita, okay.
And then Nate.
And Juanita, then Nate. And is that, I'm just looking here.
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. Juanita, go ahead, please.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I just want to address the reason why I nominated, and there's many reasons, and I know that it can be challenging in times, especially what happened recently, and because of my experience, this how systems can be hurtful and not listen to Indigenous communities and really not center people with lived experience. And there's a whole wide range of people with lived experience. And if we listen to the people that we serve and we heard them on public comment and listening to those that have been homeless and are homeless or have any kind of unstable housing, and it's such an issue, it's an urgent issue, and I believe that Ben has been addressing that and has been speaking up for change and being a voice for those that are not voiceless, and also engaging in building relationships with myself and with my other counterparts, that we work together as a coalition, as a collective. We're not siloed by ourselves. We don't serve ourselves. And that was the way we serve our communities. And that's why we're here today, because of the theory of change. And because it has not been, it's been hurtful, and what has all happened and to where we are today in the new CEO search. And I respect everyone's place and work and that we all share together. But I think it's time to make room for a new person to step up. And part of that is to make room for others in their leadership roles. And I'm grateful that Nate and Harold and all the other people that had those roles, even now currently with the secretary and the treasury position, and with our acting CEO, Helen. And I'm grateful that we're all here stepping forward, stepping up, and collectively together as a community. Unity is the business. There's always reasons why people can not like each other, but this work is grounded in love, and we have to be mindful for the land acknowledgement and this territory and Coast Salish, and I always want to lift them up, honor them, and be grateful for all the other Indigenous communities that live here. And we live in a beautiful multicultural area, and it's diverse in so many ways, and so much beauty in this land and our communities. And we just want to be able to lift others up so they're not dying. And we have to remember them. So I'm just grateful for Ben, and somebody pushed that work for that theory of change retreat. I had a pushback, and nobody was speaking up.
Juanita, I'm gonna, I'm gonna I think you've taken the time necessary to speak to Ben. Yes. Nate, you wish to speak to.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Pro Tem. As you know, I was proud to serve as co-chair when we formed 3 years ago, and I can attest to how much that work entails. And I'm sure it's just as much, if not more now, than we had over 100 staff than we had when we had no staff at the time, and we were sharing resources between the city of Seattle and King County at the start. But I heard some conversations here just recently about, experience and working with the people with lived experience. I was at least fortunate to have a co-chair with Harold Oldham by my side, while Simha has led this board as more of a chair during his tenure without a co-chair from someone with lived experience. And so hoping that we recognize some of that in terms of the last, this tenure so far. But, when I announced I was needing to step down and called for board members to consider replacing me, I was glad that he called and expressed interest and was ultimately unanimously voted in. I had foreseen and he has delivered my perspective, his calm methodological approach and governance and assessing opportunities and challenges that were presented to him, and he always lent an ear to us and staff. And if he felt needed to, as Paula mentioned, he leans in on occasion. But I had resonated with his like Switzerland type approach in facilitating the needs, the ebb and flow of this board. We have a lot of other officer positions and chair positions to get to for the committees that we've more formally established beyond finance, on budget and systems and planning. But we have a lot of known and possibly new challenges and endeavors in the year ahead of us too, and a sea of change currently among us. And I just value consistency in our implementation board leadership at this time, but more specifically as it relates to this co-chair seat in particular. And so thank you, Pro Tem Chair, for the time.
Thank you, Nate. I'm going to ask that we now move to a vote. Damian is going to need to leave to take care of some graduations. So let's do a roll call first. This would be for Ben, and second, it would be for Simha.
Yep. This one is for position B for Ben Merritts. Member Anderson,
Yes.
Member Caminos,
No.
Member Carvalho,
No.
Member Shelmanack,
Yes.
Member Merritts,
Yes.
Member Spotted Elk,
Juanita?
We're both voting on Ben, right? Correctly?
yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Thank you
Member
for
McHenry
clarifying.
Jr., yes. Member McHenry Jr., yes or no?
No.
Member Patnow, yes or no?
No.
Member Floyd, yes or no? Jaja, Floyd, yes or no?
Yes, yes,
Yes. Member Reddy, yes or no?
No.
Member Rankin, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Ross, yes or no?
No.
6-6.
6-6. With that, 6 yeses, 6 nos.
Okay, I'm going to move to vote for Simha Reddy.
Alrighty, this is for Simha Reddy for co-chair position B. Member Anderson, yes or no?
No.
Member Caminos, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Carvalho, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Shelmanack, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Merritts, yes or no?
No.
Member Spotted Elk, yes or no?
No.
Member McHenry Jr., yes or no?
Yes.
Member Patnow, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Floyd, yes or no?
no,
Member Reddy, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Rankin, yes or no?
No.
And finally, Member Ross, yes or no?
Yes.
With that, that is 7 yeses, 5 nos. Simha Reddy is in position B, co-chair.
Okay, we will move to nominations for treasurer or secretary.
Treasurer first.
Move to nominations for treasurer. Are there people who wish to be nominated for treasurer?
See 2 hands up, one from Shasha and one from Ben.
Yes.
We'll go with Jaja first and then Ben.
Jaja, I think. Jaja retracted.
Oh, retracted. Ben?
I'd like to nominate myself.
Okay. Is there okay, you don't need a second for the nomination. Ben has nominated himself. Is there another nomination?
I'd like to nominate Damian Padma.
Okay. Damian is nominated for treasurer.
Does Damon accept?
Damon, are you on the line? Is Damon the treasurer currently, or is he the?
Yes.
I'm still here. I got about 5 minutes before I need to walk out for marching, so I.
Okay.
Does he accept the nomination?
Yeah, so you, Damian, do you accept the nomination for treasurer? That is a question.
Sure, I'll accept it.
Okay, I'm gonna stop here and see if we can move ourselves. So any other further nominations?
Nope.
Before we continue, I do want to say that I am not going to run for secretary because I am planning to run for the co-chair position.
Right. Okay, well, this is the process. So there, I'm not seeing any other nominees for treasurer.
Juanita says she would like to nominate herself for treasurer.
Juanita, okay, I'm sorry. I'm not online. So Juanita.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, for secretary, I guess.
Okay, that will be next. That'll be dealt with next. Pastor Anderson has his hand up as well.
Pastor Anderson.
Retracted.
Okay, retracted.
Oh, thank you. I'll put my hand down. Thank you, Pro Tem. I was wondering, are we following the same process in terms of letting the candidates have a minute and a half or a minute?
Yeah, let's let the two candidates have that, and then we'll go at it.
Thank you.
So let's go. I think Ben was nominated first. So Ben, very quickly, if you could spend a minute.
Sure. Well, firstly, thank you for everybody who participated in that dramatic election. I did want to also speak on Simma's behalf, because I do know that he has worked so hard to get us to where we are now, and absolutely has his values in the right place, and is going to be a great co-chair for the rest of this year. So I think we're very well served by that. I would be honored to be part of the executive committee working with Simha, and I think that I bring a deep financial background. It's my professional life, and I think Simha and I have a very good working relationship, despite both seeking the co-chair position. I'm sure we can be very effective in that realm. And while many of you spoke to the value of continuity in a time of change, I think that's very important. But I just would like to remind you that we do have to make changes. You know, we can't. We have real issues.
And
that
that
we
is
have
a
to
minute.
work. That's a new view we have there. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I'm just. That would mean. Oh, Damien, I know you're on a quick time schedule here.
No worries. Very quickly, obviously fiscal responsibility is critical. And I also bring, just like Ben, some experience managing budgets. In the Renton School District, we have about a $268 million budget that I'm responsible for providing to the board. And as a matter of fact, just passed recently, and we've maintained a 7% fund balance during this time of difficult economic times for school districts. And so fiscal responsibility will be at the forefront of my mind. Additionally, I come to service with that exactly in mind, to serve, and it's never about me. And if I can be of any type of benefit to this organization in this role, I look forward to serving in that capacity. But I also know that there are other people like Ben as well who could do so. But what you will get from me is someone who puts others to the front. I don't need to be at the front, but I will speak my truth, and have never shied away from that. And that's just the way my parents raised me. So thank you for the opportunity to run.
Okay. I hesitate to do this. Do we have a feeling that we are going to have two people nominated for secretary? Paula has indicated she does not want to be nominated for secretary, and I believe she's serving as the secretary now.
I'll put my name in.
You will put your name in at that. Okay. I wanted to check that so we could potentially find a way forward. Okay. Okay, so the first vote is on Ben.
Ben, yep.
Yeah.
So this will be for Ben for treasurer. Member Anderson, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Caminos, yes or no?
No.
Member Carvalho, yes or no?
No.
Member Shelmanak, yes or no?
No.
Member Maris, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Spotted Elk, yes or no?
Yes.
Member McHenry Jr., yes or no?
No.
Member Patnow, yes or no?
No.
Member Floyd, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Reddy, yes or no?
No.
Member Rankin, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Ross, yes or no?
No.
The clerk only recognizes 5 yeas.
We'll vote on Damian Patno.
He dressed for the occasion.
Member Anderson, yes or no?
No.
Member Caminos, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Carvalho, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Shelmanek, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Merritt's, yes or no?
No.
Member Spotted Elk, yes or no?
No.
Member McHenry Jr., yes or no?
Yes.
Member Patnow, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Floyd, yes or no?
No.
Member Reddy, yes or no?
Yes.
Member Rankin, yes or no?
No.
And Member Ross, yes or no?
Yes.
That is 7 yeses.
Okay, Damian has been selected as treasurer for the organization. We'll move to secretary. Are there nominations for secretary? Simha. Simha, you raised your hand.
Oh, no, sorry. I was
Oh.
waving back to Damien.
Oh,
Yeah.
Trying
okay.
to
Oh,
see.
yeah.
Damien has to head out.
My apologies. I
Make
definitely
sure
do not want
everybody
to.
gets the right diploma.
Take care.
Yeah. So nominations for secretary. Did,
I would like to put my name in.
okay, Christopher Ross puts his name in for secretary. Are there other nominations for secretary?
Juanita had,
Juanita?
Juanita, would
I think she should put it in first there.
Did Juanita put
It was
her
in the
name in?
chat.
it has to be in 5
You
years.
have to, you can't do things in chat. We have to have the voice. Someone has to nominate you.
Well, I'll nominate Juanita then if she can't
Okay,
get through.
Juanita's been nominated. Any other nominations? I'll call any other nominations. Any other? Seeing none, I believe it was Christopher who was nominated first, followed by Juanita.
Awesome. So this will be for Member Ross for sorry, I have to get another piece of chair for secretary. Member Anderson, yes or no?
I'm sorry.
Member
Okay.
Anderson, yes or no for Secretary Ross?
No.
Member Caminos?
Yes.
Member Carvalho?
Yes.
Member Shelmanek?
Yes.
Member Merritt's?
No.
Member Spotted Elk?
No.
Member McHenry Jr.?
Yes.
Member Patnow is out. Is that correct? When number is now 6. Member Floyd?
No.
Member Reddy?
Yes.
Member Rankin?
No.
And Member Ross?
Yes.
Member Ross has received 6 yeses
And 5 no's.
and yes.
Okay, so that would mean now with Damian no longer on that, Christopher is selected as our secretary. Okay, I am going to turn the meeting back over to Simha.
Okay, and go ahead and move forward with our contract briefing and discussion. Thank you, everybody, and we'll do our best to do right by the board and the all of KCRJ here. We now move to the contracts briefing and discussion. I think Meg Barkley and Tiffany Brooks from KCRJ are hopefully here and can, floor is yours.
Good afternoon. I'm here. Meg is out today. Give me one moment and I will share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I will be off camera due to the screen being in front of me and you guys being off to the side to prevent me from looking away from you while I'm presenting. Today, we'll be going over the 2023 contract renewal process that we had this year with the KCRHA and providers. We'll go over the process, our current status, also our process and supports and how we can improve and the challenges that we had this year. The KCRHA is committed to ensuring that we are making contracting predictable and timely for providers. And we know that this is our core work and core function as an agency. And we definitely want to recognize that there is definitely room for improvement. And so we will also go through those items that cause some challenges and delays in our contracting this year and ways that we intend to improve going forward. This year, we did set up a dashboard to help track and monitor the progress of contracts so that we can both have that information available for us for monitoring and tracking, as well as to provide to our funders to help them see what was going on with our contracting and where contracts were in the step and in the process. At the time of this presentation being made, we had 3 contracts that were still outstanding to be granted. Today, we have 1 contract that is still pending to be granted from our agencies. On average, we were paying invoices within 5 days of us receiving them from our providers. As invoices are starting to come in more and more now that we have all of our contracts granted, this time frame is expected to increase. Our contracting process is a 10-step process. We provide our award letters to our agencies once we receive our awards in the November and December from our funders. Those award letters are then emailed out to providers so that they can know the fund source and the dollar amount. We do identify within those contract award letters that amounts are subject to change depending on the fund source as we receive finalized numbers from our agencies and funders. This year, we did host a kickoff meeting with our providers to walk them through the process of opening their contracts in Flux and updating their budget and scope of work. We also hosted office hours with our providers twice a week so that they can drop in to ask us any questions they may have and also help them work through their budget process. Once budgets and scope of works were updated within our system, providers submitted that to us and we provided them with draft contract language for them to review and make any further revisions that they would need to make on their contract language. Service providers and the KCRHA reviewed those contracts to ensure accountability and regulatory compliance were negotiated with those changes. And then a final review was done by our executive team before those contracts were moved forward for the execution process. This year, to ensure that we provided providers with time to invoice due to the time that it was taking to get contracts executed, we did initiate invoices for providers to start submitting to us prior to their contracts being fully executed and prepping them to be paid and ready for payment once contracts were executed. Would you like to do questions now or towards the end of the presentation? I see your hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just, I thought this was going to be a different conversation and one more specifically on whether or not the service providers are getting paid or not. Do you mind just maybe giving us a quick update on that? Like, have we made progress on paying them? How much arrears do we have? How many are still unpaid?
Yes, so we are paying service providers. We're paying them as contracts are executed and invoices are submitted to us. To date, we've paid roughly about $40 million in invoices for a total of, I believe, 627 invoices so far. We have several invoices that are still pending submission from providers, and as those are received by the RHA, we will continue to pay them in order of receipt and in order of them being ready for payment, depending on the supporting documentation that is being provided by providers.
What percentage of how does that 40 million reflect how much you would expect for us to have paid this time if all the contracts have been in place and all the documentation was correct?
I would have to pull that information for you and send it over to you. I do not have it available in front of me right now.
Because I think that's probably one of the most important metrics that we need to be tracking right now is, not so much how much do we think we have to pay, but how much do the service providers need to be paid, and how far are we getting in doing that? It's 40 million is a lot more than where we were last meeting, so I give you guys kudos for getting that far, but I'd be curious to know how far do we have to go after the 40 million?
Yes, I can get that for you. We've already drafted something internally, and I can just pull that and forward it to you with that information.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
McHenry here. No question. But I think because of the nature of our process and accountability, if you forward that information to Member Moritz, we should forward it to all of us.
Yes.
And I apologize, I stepped out for a moment, but I had read the I would like, I'm wondering if there is something that exists that is a contract tracker. So that we can see that, and again, this doesn't, it may be something that the IB board members would like to see and the governing board would like to see. Who do we have our contracts with? What is it for? What is the what is its current state, if you will? Is something that is along those lines that would be something that at a glance of a Excel spreadsheet, we'd be able to tell where we are in both contracting, completion of contracts, et cetera.
Yes, that is the contract dashboard that we created for agencies. I'm sorry, not for agencies, but for our funders. We will get that over to you guys as well so that you can see it. As of right now, of the 213 contracts that were being renewed, all but one is still not in the granted state. So all of them are currently in the status of being granted. And we can.
Yeah, and I guess and this it may not be for you to do, but it's been granted. But what's happening is it 25% implemented? Is it, what deliverables have come in? Maybe I don't want this to be so overly burdensome that we're all looking into these sorts of things, but again, it's just an oversight matter. I think being able to track how, Ed Koch, how are we doing? So I'm just curious about whether there is something like that or that it could be somehow implemented.
Okay, we will look into it.
Yeah, that's not really necessarily what a finance person would be doing. It would be something that would fill in the blanks from the programmatic side of the agency.
Yes, thank you. We'll look into that and get with team members to see what can we put together. Any other questions?
We can wait till you've had a chance to give us a little bit more of your presentation. Thanks.
All right. Okay, so in 2023, our contract process supports that we did for our agencies, as previously mentioned, we did office hours twice a week. There were drop-in office hours to answer any questions and to support with budget development. This was done during the months of January and February. We also increased our capacity with a firm that has experience in homelessness funding and service expertise to help review contracts to help us get us through and over the finish line for executing these contracts. We also initiated concurrent invoicing, where agencies did have the ability to submit their invoices to us while we were in the final process of reviewing their contract and execution process. Those invoices were then reviewed. If there were any discrepancies or any corrections that were needed, they were sent back to agencies at that time, then returned to us, and then set in a holding place until contracts were executed and ready for payment. Some of the challenges that we had this year was the contract initiation timeline. We are looking at a way to improved our process to get contracts out to providers and their Flux application out to them sooner than December and January, so that they can complete those processes prior to us ending the year in December. This process did not start until after we received approved funding in December of last year. So it did cause a little delay, but we are looking for a way to improve that. The renewal process in Flux was a little bit more complicated than we anticipated, with this being our first year of doing a contract renewal process in the system. We had set it up to do automated regenerations of those contracts. However, it did not work out that way, and the team had to manually generate contracts for providers this year. We also made some changes to the 2023 contract boilerplate, and it took time for us to review that information and explain it to providers to ensure that everyone was aware of these new provisions and understood them. The last challenge that we had, which was a significant challenge as well, is that we had some vacancies on our team on the finance side and the contracting team. And finding folks to fill these positions was incredibly difficult due to high demand in the labor market and finding qualified staff to fill these positions. Our next steps for improvement is getting the remaining contract completed and working with that provider to answer any questions that they have and to address them so that we can get it through the finish line and execute it. Also working with program managers and our HUD TA. We did office hours with our COC contracts to answer any questions that they may have with their contracts. We will continue to do that as those contracts are renewed on a rolling basis throughout the year. We are also working with some technical assistance to help fix some of our Flux contract management bugs to that platform and to provide direct assistance and training to both our staff and to providers. For KCRHA staffing, a budget request for additional staff was included in the budget presentation that we provided to you guys earlier this year. New contracts and compliance manager started on the team last week, and we are engaging with the recruiter to help expedite the hiring process for our vacant positions. I will say that we are very pleased with the work that they've been doing, and we are looking to have a majority of these positions filled by the end of this month, early July, so that we will have more capacity and more supports here on our team. As mentioned above, we are working with a technical assistance provider to help us with Flux, and we'll look at fixing any glitches and bugs that we have within the system and assessing if it has the capability to meet all of our needs. And another level of improvement is transparency and improving our processes, which will include us setting up an invoice dashboard. It is in development right now. Once it's available, we will share it with you guys so that you can track and monitor and see what's going on and have more visibility in our invoicing and process. Also, the process improvement exercise that we will be working with providers and RHA staff this summer to help streamline our process and increase efficiencies in contracting in preparation for our 2024 contracts. Again, our goal is to get those out and fully executed and ready to go prior to the end of this year so that agencies will have available funding and contracts starting January 1. Again, I just want to reiterate that it was a process this year. We acknowledge that we definitely have room for improvement, and we are definitely looking forward to continuing our partnership with our funders and our agencies to ensure that we're meeting their needs and making the system more user-friendly, both for internal and external stakeholders. Any questions?
Hey, Tiffany. I'm gonna go and call myself for a moment. I think one of the concerns that I heard, I think various members heard from service providers was around difficulty with communication in the past, and that was a significant worry of theirs, not knowing who to contact or how to, and not necessarily getting a response in timely fashion. I've heard there's been some significant improvement since. What do you attribute that to primarily?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I guess. Have you addressed communication, I guess?
We are working on addressing that. We do have a comms team in place that is helping with it as well. I will say that majority of the cost for that is staff capacity. And just being able to have the time to address those needs, respond to those emails, as well as processing those contracts and reviewing the contracts at the same time, including other day-to-day work that the team was focused on as well. Not an excuse, just situational awareness of what was going on during that time.
Appreciate that. Appreciate all the hard work. And I see Gordon has his hand up.
Thank you, Tiffany. Appreciate the briefing. And in the weeds question, and I hope if you already covered it, I apologize. You referred to the Flux contract management system, and is that the system we plan to use on an ongoing basis, or are we evaluating other systems? And I'm not suggesting that, I'm just asking for clarification.
Absolutely. That's a great question. And we are currently using it and evaluating if it is the system to meet our needs. At this time, we are not ready to say if we will be replacing it, because we have a consultant on that's been contracted to help us make that assessment and see if we can fix these bugs that are causing a lot of the headache and growing pains that providers and that we are experiencing with the system.
Great. Appreciate that. And I appreciate that we have some getting some technical assistance on that, even as the staff work to utilize the existing system. So appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other comments from the board?
I just would say very quickly, I understand that we've delayed the contract, the full procurement rebid. I saw that email come out. I did want to just thank you for that decision, both to you and to Helen and to everyone else who's involved with that. I think that was really the right thing to do. And just to circle back on wanting to really see a dashboard, how are we doing kind of report on this. This organization's fundamental business process is hiring service providers to do work. We have to be able to pay them on time and promptly. And so I think that's a really critical KPI that we need to start tracking at the board level almost every meeting, given how it's a recurring issue. And we certainly can't do re-procurement until we at least are able to manage the contracts that we have today.
Thank you, Ben. Christopher, did you have your hand up?
I have a question, and if same as Gordon, if you've covered this, forgive me. Are there SLAs that the RHA is using, service level agreements, as far as turnaround times for contracts and for questions and for everything from communications to submitting of payments?
Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry.
As it pertains to the contracts, do you have service level agreements or expectations that you're sharing with the service providers as to turnaround times for payments, turnaround times for contracts? I think SLAs, service level agreements, is a great way to level set everyone's expectations. And then it makes it easier to know when we're not in compliance. But if everyone knows that it takes 2 days to get a reply to a business email, that's fine if that's what's understood, or whatever the time is. If there's a set period of time that's agreed upon for turnaround of payments or anything else with contracts, that's fine too. It's just a matter of establishing those baselines. And I think SLAs are really valuable for helping calm people for understanding of when they can expect to hear something or see something. And if you're automating and you're getting further along this pipeline, it sounds like you might be able to, if you've not already established those, to focus on trying to establish them and broadcast them to the constituents you're working with.
Yes, I will have to check with the team and get back to you on that to see what's in place. And we'll share that information with you of what we do have in place.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Tiffany, I just had one other comment. Given that the city of Seattle and King County have, each have their own contracting systems, and then we have a third contracting system, as you sort of review Flux and decide how to go forward, Are you considering whether or not it may be beneficial just to be in alignment with one of those two, given how many of our service providers have contracts with either the city or the county?
We have not discussed that yet.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Well, thank you so much, Tiffany, and to your whole team for all the hard work. We're going to move now to the Ombuds Charter briefing and discussion. We had scheduled, well, I will turn it over to Chief Ombudsperson Katara Jordan.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Katara Jordan, and I serve as the Chief Ombudsperson for the Regional Homeless Authority. Let me share my screen with you so you have a visual representation of kind of what I am discussing. Can you see this on your screen?
Yes.
Okay. So discussing the interlocal agreement, the purpose of the Ombuds Office is to promote employee, public, and those accessing homelessness services confidence in the authority's ability to serve people experiencing homelessness effectively, efficiently, and equitably. In Section 6 of the interlocal agreement, authorizing KCRH's activities, it outlines the following duties and responsibilities of the Ombuds Office, which include collecting data and gathering feedback to improve operations and outcomes, ensuring ease of contact for people using services, resolving concerns, investigating complaints, issuing reports, and reporting independently to the implementation board twice a year. Now, the interlocal agreement provides further guidance that these activities shall be done within the bounds of program delivery, policies, program administrations, and other activities overseen or funded by the authority. Now, as a first step in addressing the interlocal agreement's mandate to develop methods to respond to complaints and concerns and to promote transparency on how the office goes about doing its work, the charter was created to further outline the office's responsibilities, limitations, and the standards by which it will operate. To that end, the charter is divided into the following areas: history, purpose, standards of practice, jurisdiction, scope of services and core functions, safety from retribution or retaliation for using the Ombuds Office, reporting, appointment and removal from office, conflict of interest, and amendment and revocation of the charter. Now, that is an overview of the Ombuds Charter, and I'm happy to discuss further any questions that you might have, but there's also some concerns that I would like to raise as well for this group to think about. So please let me know if you have questions or if you would like me to raise some of the things that I would ask you to think about and partner with our team on addressing.
I'd say continue. I'd say give us what her thoughts are.
Some of the conversations that I've had is some clarity around reporting. Now, it is my understanding and the advice of legal counsel that the interlocal agreement considers the Ombuds Office as a division of the King County Regional Homeless Authority. It also requires the Ombuds Office to partner with authority leadership, the implementation board, employees, and the larger community served by the authority. So I do believe that the language that is currently in the charter does need to get clearer around reporting. And I do think that the CEO, the deputy CEO, and the chief administrative officer, and partner with the implementation board, specifically the executive committee of the board, should have a role in receiving reports from the Ombuds Office, as well as the chief Ombuds appointment and removal. The other thing that I raised to this group in the memo is, how do we start to think about confidentiality and ensuring that we are protecting those who are contacting the office? Because we have heard from community members that it does create somewhat of a chilling effect, that when they contact the office and they are sharing information with us, that we can't guarantee blanket confidentiality because we are subject to the Washington State Public Records Act. And so those are things that I would also like for this board to consider. It's not something that we can resolve overnight, but I do think it's something that we should elevate, because I've heard a lot of people talk about centering people with lived experience. And part of centering people with lived experience is not just listening, but trying to figure out how it is reflected in the policies and the way that we do our work.
May I pause just for a moment? For the board, I'd like to move via unanimous consent that we add 20 minutes to this board meeting. I understand people may need to leave, but I want you to be able to provide your presentation and answer questions, Katara. Is there any objection to that motion to extend this meeting by 20 minutes?
To 4:20?
To 4:20.
No objection.
Okay. Hearing no objection, that motion passes. We will extend to 4:20. Also, Katara, would you, I see that Jaja's hand is up now. Do you want to take a question now or wait till you have completed your presentation?
I mean, my presentation is complete. It's really just to give you an overview of what the charter, I've sent a memo, I've sent the charter, as well as the grievance policy that is referenced in the charter. And so it's really a time to kind of ask questions and we can have a dialogue about how to address any concerns that the board may have.
Thank you. And so I see Jaja's hand first, and then Ben after that.
Yes, Qatar, I was wondering about the MOU that the King County Regional Homeless Authority has with the Lived Experience Coalition as in the ILA, as far as the Ombuds office, where it is a joint affair and not just under the KCRHA.
So the interlocal agreement does not say anything about the Ombuds office being a joint office. Now, there was a memorandum of agreement, but that memorandum of agreement was terminated, I believe in May. And that was sent to the leadership of the LEC. And so LEC leadership should be aware that that memorandum of agreement was terminated.
And that was terminated by the CEO at the time, the sitting CEO?
Yes, yes.
Go ahead, Ben.
See Ben and then Gunn after that.
I actually was going to ask the same thing because I do remember seeing that MOU that had the lived experience coalition serving as a voice for folks with lived experience in the governance.
I would be happy to discuss that. What happened was, at the time that the agreement was signed, the LEC was not a legal entity.
Mm-hmm.
The legal entity was building changes. And so when that relationship between the LEC and the BC and BC ended, our MOU, MOA with the LEC also ended.
When was it?
Yeah, I mean, that's like a sort of legal and procedural
it is.
But is there like a broader reason for that we don't feel that we need people with lived experience to be part of the Ombuds office?
It's not that we don't need people with lived experience to be part of the Ombuds office. I think we need to be very clear that lived experience is not limited to the LEC. And I think that is something that we've heard loud and clear from the community as a whole. And, we need to be honest, right? That yes, it is particularly important that people with lived experience are part of the conversation, but lived experience is not enough. We need people also to bring a clear system analysis and be prepared to offer solutions that are well-informed and well-informed thought partnership on how to change components of the homeless response system that have not served the community well. And I think that, from what I've witnessed over the past year and a half, we need to have very clear boundaries about what our roles are. And I don't think that has always happened with some of our community partners. The KCRHA Ombuds absolutely wants to partner. There needs to be boundaries and an understanding that the KCRHA Ombuds is not beholden to what a particular organization demands or wants, and may not always be in complete alignment with a particular organization, especially if it is not in the best interest of the public good or people we serve experiencing homelessness. And I just think we need to do a better job of being transparent about what the limits are and what spaces are designed and are appropriate and what spaces are not appropriate for our advocacy partners. And, you know, as I just mentioned earlier, from what I've witnessed and experienced over the past year and a half, those lines have been completely blurred. And as a result, my team has really tried to be really intentional about creating those clear boundaries, which I think is reflected in the charter.
So I guess I mean, you're saying a lot of things that I think I agree with in theory, but it sounds like there's a lot of specifics of issues that you're taking with the LEC and the role that they are playing with the Ombudsman's office, which have caused us to go in a different direction. And I
don't think it's going in a different direction. I actually think we are centering the theory of change. How can we center lived experience if we're only partnering with one organization? It is not enough to have the same 5 to 10 people, right, give us, you know, their opinion and thoughts about the work. We are a regional agency. We are charged with doing community engagement across the region. Nowhere have I shared or nowhere in the charter is it reflected that we will not center people with lived experience. The LEC is a partner just like any other advocacy partner that we have that we do not contract with, right? And yes, we will take the LEC's feedback, but they are not the only partner. And I think we do a disservice to people with lived experience as a whole when we don't acknowledge that and recognize that there are thousands of other voices that we also need to be elevating and lifting up.
Katara, may I just finish like a whole sentence, please?
Thank you.
Thank you. Katara, let me like say 2 or 3 sentences together, and then I'll give you a turn to respond if that's okay. We had an MOU with the LEC that, because of the nature where they were, was with was through their fiscal sponsor. That relationship changed. I think it's debatable as to whether or not that gave us the right to withdraw from that MOU. I'm not a lawyer. There are others who are, but and so there's a couple of questions, right? One is, why are we pushing the LEC out? And this comes back to the same comment I made at the beginning of the meeting, where it really feels like we have these folks here who play a lived experience, the role of giving us the voice of lived experience, and then we keep like excluding them from meetings. We exclude them from the roles that we agree to put them in. It's problematic for me. And if there's, I don't disagree with some of the theoretical things you said, that we should have broad participation for people with lived experience. We should have, they should represent the whole community. All those things, I agree with those things for sure. But I'm concerned about this specific decision that we've made here to push the LEC out of this role without really having anything else to replace it with. And in the packet, a lot of what was there was that the governance of the Ombudsman office is going to come back to the implementation board, which again, I'm not comfortable with. This board is new, and we have a hard time doing the things that we're already assigned to do in the ILA. I don't know that we can take on more responsibilities. I do believe the Ombudsman office has to be independent. I do believe it has to have oversight from people with lived experience. We had an approach to do that with the LEC being part of the leadership. Now we're choosing a different route. I think that's okay. I'm willing to have that debate, but I'd like to really have that holistically and make sure we get to a good outcome that gets us to all the goals that you just said, which I agree with. So I'll leave that there and hand it over to Jaja. I appreciate you bringing this to us, but I think there's more work to be done here.
Thank you, Ben. And I think actually John was next, and then Jaja.
I think Jaja was actually,
okay.
yeah.
Sorry. Jaja, please go ahead.
Yeah, you know, I'm starting to feel like personalized here, because I'm part of the LEC, which is a coalition of people with lived experience. We are in various counties, not just King County, and we are a collective of over 300 people. And we're not a club. We're not a club. I don't understand the LEC organization. No, we're the LEC, we're Share Will, we're mutual aids in there. We have various people under the LEC, but I feel like I'm feeling attacked. And I just want to say that. And I feel like as lived experience that you're kicking us out the park, and when you're kicking us out, yeah, I do. I feel like that. That all we are here is just to be a person, to be set up as a puppet, to play a governmental role and not be heard, to be seen and not heard. That's what I feel like. And I'm going to say that and I'm going to speak to that. I'm here to do the work, the good work that includes everybody and everything inclusively, not to silo one person against another. And that's what I feel like is going on here. And I need to speak my mind and keep it clear and put it on the record.
Thank you, Jaja. John, you.
Oh, I'm going to ask a question. What MOU with the LEC? I did not know that there was one regarding that. So first of all, that's my question for Qatari. Can you just give me some background to it? Because
yeah, absolutely.
Understand when I don't, it's really when was it entered into and how was it terminated?
Absolutely. So when I was first brought on, I was asked to develop a joint office with the LEC, meaning that half my staff would be KCRJ employees and the other half would be employees of the LEC. For various reasons, the structure did not work. We initially
okay. I'm sorry. I'm just talking about the MOU now.
Yeah,
So
and I'm gonna get
when
into
you
that.
Came on, was there an MOU?
There was not an MOU. The MOU was signed in August of 2022.
2022.
Yes.
And it was terminated in May
In
of 2023.
In 2023. And we did have legal counsel review.
Okay, and it was a document that was, I don't recall it ever coming before
It
implementation.
never came before the implementation board, because this entire time it's really been, even though it was signed, it's been in negotiation and things haven't been in flux because there was not really good oversight as well as good partnership on behalf of the LEC.
Okay, so the ILA with King County requires the implementation board, as I understand it, to approve a contract with the Ombuds person. That's you. I don't think that contract has ever come before us, right?
It hasn't.
It hasn't. So you were actually hired through the KCRHA process of hiring.
I was, although the LEC did play a role in recruiting and bringing me on and also part of the hiring process. KCRJ gave the LEC quite a bit of leeway in participating in my hiring.
Okay. When did that occur? That would have been
I was initially I think recruited in August. I did not come in until November of recruited around August 2022. I did not officially start until December 6, 2022.
Okay, that's good to know. So my other comment on, and I guess I better hurry this up because we only went another 20 minutes. I found the charter to be very overbroad. I think you should be looking at KCRHA issues specific to KCRHA, contracts, complaints, those sorts of things. I want to make sure that if there is an agency that has a separate path for resolving disputes, that agency path gets followed, and that we help people follow that policy, follow that dispute resolution. We should help people in that so that they are able to be effective in that dispute resolution, however you look at it. But we should not simply be going out and creating a whole new process to investigate a complaint where a process already exists. So I'd like to see some language around that.
Excuse me, when you say that a process already exists, a process does not already necessarily exist for doing investigations. This is the process that I'm laying out. And the ILA is actually very broad, and it doesn't give a lot of guidance exactly on, you know, what it wants the ombuds to do in terms of, you know, following a specific process. Now, it does give the ombuds, you know, tells the ombuds to develop, you know, certain methods around investigation and so forth. And that was the idea behind the charter. Now, I do agree with you that it is a broad focus, right? That I do think typically, you know, our limitations would be only on KCRJ funded programs. However, we are also the COC lead. And as you know, and when I say COC, the continuum of care is not just about funding, right? It is this body of stakeholders that are responsible for being accountable to the homelessness response system. And my understanding is that system performance is a function and the responsibility of the continuum of care. So it's not just about, for example, looking at poor performing organizations that receive funding and then relocating that funding, but the COC is also responsible for monitoring how the entire system performs, which includes like things like the housing inventory chart and outlining housing interventions, regardless of its funding source. So as KCRJ being the COC lead, we play a core role in the system. And so it seems a bit remiss for the ombuds not to address issues or concerns that may have an impact on the system as a whole. Now, you know, of course, it would be absolutely easy for the ombuds office to keep its focus narrow and only focusing on those KCRJ funded programs. But we have many providers that are receiving funding from KCRJ for their programs, but they also have programs where they're not receiving KCRJ funding. And what do we do when we receive complaints about individuals in those programs being harmed? Do we just say that, you know, we can't take this on because this particular program of this particular organization is not receiving funding by KCRJ, but recognizing that still some of these providers play a role regardless of their funding in the system. And so I hear you about things being broad, but like these are the parameters that were laid out in the ILA.
So the COC handles, if I remember, a significant amount of HUD funding.
It does.
Is it okay? So we're going to then, where HUD might have a dispute resolution, we're going to step in and do our own dispute resolution.
HUD doesn't have a clear and this is part of the reason why the Ombuds office was created, right? So individuals assessing programs, there is a third-party mechanism, right, to be able to address their issues. That is not clear in HUD regulations. And from my understanding, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, yes, people can file a complaint, but you know, it's going to go through this lengthy administrative process and not necessarily deal with the issue at hand. And you know, when there is a more appropriate entity to address a concern, we direct individuals to those entities. You know, for example, you know, one of the complaints that we received was regarding an ongoing infestation in a permanent supportive housing site. We explored that issue more closely. We learned that the complainant had reached out to the Department of Health as well as the provider, who in all fairness attempted to address the issue, but it continued to proliferate. So in that case, we directed the complainant to the Seattle Department of Construction and Inspections, who was better equipped to address the concerns raised by the complainant, right? Or another example is that a young adult experiencing homelessness reached out to our office to help them verify their homeless status so that they can be considered an independent student for the purposes of applying for federal aid. And in that situation, we directed them to their financial aid office with resources about the current law and changes in law that would have allowed them to connect with their financial aid officer to verify their status. So we do that when we are not the appropriate, you know, forum, we make sure that we are directing people to those appropriate forums.
I think that's perfect, to be directing people into the right forum and to giving them help. I think that's perfect. I think, anyway, I'll leave it at that. I took too much time. I apologize.
Thank you, John. I see Gordon next.
Actually, John, you may have taken a lot of time, but I was going to weigh in. I appreciate Katara being here with us, getting some insight into her role and the role of the ombudsman, you know, as a functioning entity. I'm going to be really quick. I'm just going to say I think it's a really important conversations plural. We have identified, we have briefly touched, we have briefly engaged, and we did it again today around this duality and sensitivity that we're committed to prioritizing folks with lived experience. We utilize and benefit from the Lived Experience Coalition, and the Lived Experience Coalition is broad and inclusive, and it is not all people with lived experience. And I'm not going to let us shy away from that. And so I want us to continue to find a way to have that important conversation, to understand where the tension may exist inherently. Hopefully it's not conflict. Hopefully it's not a situation where members of LEC feel attacked or feel harmed, but we cannot shy away from the reality that this whole construct is rife with representation, but is not exclusive. And so, you know, Krista and I, appointed by the county. I don't work for the county. I don't represent all of the county. Krista and I don't agree on everything, but we're here as being appointed by the county. Some folks appointed by the city. So this is inherent in in the RHA. I think we're going to have to courageously power through some more of this conversation. Changing topics very quickly. I agree with, as I understand it, John, in terms of the broad nature of the ILA, the broad nature of the ombudsman. Both John and I served on the COC and as former when it was all home on that board. I was co-chair of that board. It is incredibly broad. So I was getting uncomfortable until Katara said, oh, we understand that. We're working on, you know, the ground rules, the guidelines, and we have an active practice of referring people, not taking on everything that comes in the door. And so if we have a role in approving some of this, I will be looking for what's in black and white. So when people pick this up, they understand what is the role and responsibility of the Ombudsman Office. And we understand what our role is to provide support or oversight. But I agree, it is written very broadly. And I think it would be unwise if we were to do that, lift it up literally, because we'll find ourselves involved, or you'll find yourselves involved in a lot of things, and we'll be missing things that are probably closer to the core responsibilities of the RHA, in my opinion. So stepping back, thanks for letting me just make a few observations or some comments from my perspective on this board.
Thank you, Gordon. I just wanted to make one brief comment. This is now a couple of years back, when we were first trying to approve the initial staffing plan. I honestly did not understand why it was so important to Harold and the LEC that the Ombuds office be part of the very initial piece, right? Like I could get sort of the deputy and chief of staff, but why the Ombuds? And, I think what I've realized, and the thing that had not occurred to me until they pushed for that to be at the core of the KCRHA, is the Ombuds office is, I think, potentially one of the most consequential pieces of KCRHA. Up until now, like when somebody experiences harm in the community, like they are not served well in some way, they for the most part did not have a place to go. And we finally have that. And it may just be a starting point, right? It might be the triage to say, hey, actually, you do have a process for a complaint or within the organization, or we will take it within ourselves. But this feedback loop, right? To know that the services we are providing, that our clients and our customers can say, hey, this is not working for me, it's huge. And I think it's why, when we talk about ensuring that there is representation from people with lived experience in the Ombuds office, I think that's why that matters so much. I think this conversation is one that we need to continue, likely in one of our committee meetings and or fold this work into one of our committees most likely. With all of our, with as many board members as possible, including our LEC members or lived experience members. Anyway, I am rambling a little bit. This is to say, the Ombuds office is incredibly important. I want to make sure it gets done right, and I think we all do. And we're going to find space to have those conversations. And Qatar, if you're willing to make yourself available for some of our individual board members or small groups of our board members to connect with you as well, to talk it through.
Yeah, I would also appreciate the opportunity, Simha, to be able to talk to people one-on-one, to give them kind of an understanding of what has led us to this point.
Do we have other comments or questions as we approach the end? Okay. Like I said, thank you to the those of you who've attended in person, those who've attended virtually, and to the board. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any objections?
No, thank you, everybody. Thank you to our new officers. We're very lucky to have you all.
We should have been. We will do our best to do right by you and the whole board. All right.
Thanks,
Take care,
everyone.
all.
All right,
Bye.
thank you.
Happy Juneteenth to everyone.